Hello, it's Richard Pears from FinextraTV, and today I'm joined by Tim Coates. Tim is the co-founder of Oxbury Bank. Hello.
Hi, Richard. Good to see you.
Well, listen, I'm so excited about today's conversation, and you're going to tell us about Oxbury Bank and who they are and what the purpose is. But this is all part of our series of interviews where we're trying to understand how capital is being allocated to nature and climate projects. And as a new bank, you've got a fantastic story to tell. So without further ado, who are Oxbury Bank and what are you trying to achieve?
So Oxbury Bank has been in existence and trading for just over 3 years now, and we are a bank dedicated to the agricultural sector, the agri-food sector. So we work primarily with the primary producers, so farmers, but also across the whole sort of agri-food value chain, those who supply farmers, and obviously those who are taking products off from farmers up through the food supply chain all the way up to retailers. So that is our bread and butter, that's our specialism, that's where we operate.
And where is the geography that you operate, and
So
why do you feel there's a need for another player in the space?
So we currently are a UK-based bank, but we have some global ambitions, which I'm sure we'll come into talking about. We basically identified that there was a real need for a new bank that served this crucial sector. And in the context of today's conversation, obviously it's a sector not that we don't just depend on in terms of what it actually produces in terms of food, but actually its role in climate change mitigation and adaptation going forward. So it's actually a really exciting sector to be specialists in. And there were a whole range of factors, including that got us in there. But actually, a lot of it was to do with the fact that it was a sector crying out for dedicated specialist support because it has some real intricacies and differences to a lot of other parts of the economy. And we wanted to bring, a new technology-enabled solution to the market to support the sector.
So there's a gap in the market. Clearly, there's a specialist need, as you say, and of course, as we all know from the last whatever it is, 15 years or so, lots of new challenger banks are emerging, helping. What do you do? Let's get the sort of the prosaic, banking out of the way first of all. Do you deal with business banking, consumer banking? Where's the scope of the work you do?
So primarily, we are, as I say, lending to farmers and those who work in the food supply chain from a business perspective. So we are a business bank in that sense. On our savings side, actually, we take savings from the general public as well as businesses, both in the sector and not in the sector. So we're a sort of full service across the savings side, where we offer a range of competitive products across easy access, notice, bonds, all the normal things you would expect there. But on the lending side, we are focused on our sector, the agri-food supply chain, and primarily the primary producer, the farmer. But really, for us, what this means is it's about getting the right product at the right time at the right price. That's what's needed. So we have an ability to be bespoke in the way we structure our products on the lending side that suits the sector and the subsectors that make up farming. We make sure that that's done in a really holistic way, considering every aspect of what that business requires, and we make sure that it's competitively priced. We are trying to disrupt, the incumbent large four banks here, who generally have the share of this sector. So that's who we're competing against. They offer competitive rates. We offer competitive rates. We compete with them on price, and we exceed on service.
Which is, it has to be table stakes, doesn't it? You've got to be competitive for the audience. But then you said not only do we depend on farmers, we depend on what they depend on, which is nature and climate. How do you help them navigate, this this big macro issue, but then the specifics of local application and regulation and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our reasons that we came together and formed Oxbury was because of this requirement for the agricultural transition. So that's a policy question which is going on post Brexit here in the UK, and is actually now a devolved matter. So it's actually happening in a different way in the different nations. But it's obviously, that's the bigger context of that is the requirement to address the climate crisis and the fact that the UK is one of the most nature depleted countries in the world, because actually what that really is telling you is a food security issue. If we are not able to have a productive farmland environment that is operating in a healthy manner with respect to nature and climate, then there won't be productive farming into the future. So there is no sort of particular trade-off here between food security and nature, which sometimes is debated. Actually, what we're saying is we're about building resiliency. We're about supporting farms transition to a new kind of production paradigm that not only secures their long-term productivity, but actually generates value for society and the economy at large through the restoration of nature and adapting to the climate catastrophe that we find ourselves in.
And do you do that with offering finance to obviously go through a transition, I imagine, but are you doing more than that? Are you looking across your, the patterns and practices that you're seeing emerging from engaging with many players to able to offer a advisory consulting capability? I
So
mean, how does it?
we
Yeah,
generally don't go for sort of, we don't do advice,
right.
and but we are obviously specialists in the sector. So we come from, so our underwriters, our relationship managers, we farming specialists. We understand what a farming business model looks like, and we understand then the natural capital layer that is part of that. So we are able to have meaningful conversations, whether they're originated by the customer who is coming to particularly to talk about a natural capital type investment, or whether it's something that we're adding into the conversation as we consider what they may require in terms of general support financially from us. And what that means also is that we work with the other actors in the supply chain. So I said before that we work with those who supply products and services to farmers. So they are often providing advice on this transition. And we are sometimes, some of them, putting financial support behind some of those packages. Likewise, we are working with those who are buying from farmers, the food processors and producers, and they themselves are concerned about the resiliency of their supply chain and wanting to invest in their farmers, in their supply chain. And we are building products and services with them that also support that transition on farm. So we're working in a kind of holistic way across the supply chain to enable that. So the advice and direction is more coming from the sector as a whole, and we are the enabling factor from a financial perspective. But clearly, we have to understand what we're talking about to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, you spoke about, being a modern bank, and, I know that we'll come to it in a minute, a little bit more about the technology, but what is the role, people talk about the role of, data and technology to both, measure, the MRV side of things, if you will. What's your role in all of that, and how does the banking system help you?
So our role in that is both sort of there's a sort of individual role for the bank, and then there's our role with our customers and those supply chain partners as well. So there's kind of sort of three tiers of that. As the bank, we are under a set of both mandatory obligations, but also some voluntary ones we've adopted to be reporting on what our impact is. We like to talk about responsible impact rather than ESG, but that's what I'm talking about here. So we are very cognizant of what the impact of our actions is. So we are concerned with our financed emissions, for example, scope 3, as well as our scope 1 and 2, which being a professional services company is actually quite small. So we're really looking into that and projecting what we expect as we grow. We're growing our balance sheet as we take business from our competitors over time. How do we ensure that we are growing in such a way that our lending is going out there and reducing on-farm emissions over time, right? That's what we're looking at. And so to your data point, we have a lot of categorization of our lending to enable us to report accurately against a range of frameworks, both those that are sort of well recognized, so what used to be TCFD and is now ISSB. We are an early adopter of the TNFD package, and we have already reported against the beta framework of that in our natural capital report that we put out last year. We will be adopting transition plan for ourselves, which of course will then feed into what we do with our supply chain partners and customers. So that's the sort of reporting layer at a kind of company level, and our disclosures that we put into the public domain. But to do that, we clearly need to know what the purpose of all of our lending is, what's going on farm. So we have, we work with a range of partners and our farmers to ensure that we have good data communication between the two of us. Everything from an on-farm emissions profile, on-farm biodiversity, water management, flood risk, all really important, and the kind of data that we are able to ingest and manage and report on both internally and externally. And that's made so much more straightforward by the fact that we're operating a single system in our bank that we have built up from scratch that enables us to do that, and we're not operating on legacy systems or multiple systems. Everyone's looking at a single source of the truth, and it makes everyone in the business able to talk both very broad but also very specific about an individual customer and their needs, or a prospective customer and their requirements.
Fantastic. So when you hear people saying, we don't have enough data about biodiversity, we don't know what that means as a relative to capital and risk, it sounds like you would say, well, I'm not sure I agree with that. Was
I
that true?
agree with I agree actually, but the point is I think it's one of these ones where action can be taken. It is a tricky problem, and a lot of the issues are at the farm level.
Hmm.
We know that that will solve itself over time, and we are part of helping solve that. It is our job to build the rest of that data layer, if you like, to
Yes.
ensure that as that continues to get better and improve and more investment goes into that, we are ready and able to make sure it is best used.
Okay, no, that's
So,
beautifully put. And so we spoke, I nodded to it briefly, but one of the things I noticed you did was that you worked with a core banking provider, Nakoda, I think they're called, and then subsequently you acquired them. Tell me, as a bank, why would you do that? What's the
yeah.
story there?
Yes, so a number of us involved in the bank had experience in setting up other banks prior to Oxbury in a variety of ways, and we knew when developing Oxbury that we were going to have to build, as I say, sort of products and services that would be not vanilla. They would have to require an element of bespoking and flexibility, and we needed to be able to do that in a controlled way and continue to iterate product, which is what we continue to do. And insofar as that, we had to look at, do we have to build all of the technology ourselves, or can we have something off the shelf? Generally, the off the shelf packages weren't appropriate because they wouldn't have been flexible enough. We wouldn't have had the necessary control to be able to iterate product fast enough. Actually, what we ended up doing was we found Nakoda, who had developed a core banking solution, but as yet it was sort of in its sort of infancy. It was there was no other there were no other customers of it. It was sort of the bare bones of a core banking infrastructure, and we entered into a co-design, co-development agreement with them to develop it up further, specifically for the Oxbury use case. And in doing that, we obviously became their largest customer and worked with them very, very closely until there was an almost inevitability that we would acquire them and bring the sort of Nakoda full infrastructure fully in-house and fully under our control, which is now called Oxbury Earth. And actually, I alluded to it earlier, it is Oxbury Earth that is our stepping stone into taking the Oxbury proposition and ethos and mission globally. There are the same requirements to improve agricultural banking and services that are connected to finance in agriculture in other jurisdictions. And actually, the first best entry point for that, and including from a capital efficiency point of view, is technology led. So we're actually piloting a particular functionality from the Nakoda core banking platform, as it used to be called, but Oxbury Earth now, in the States. So we have a first customer there. And that's very much actually a part of the data management side of the platform rather than anything specifically financial. But because it's modular, because it's built in that way, we can go and iterate that over time. So we expect that to become something that looks much more financial rather than just technology led over time in that state. And we are in conversations with a range of opportunities across the globe to take that functionality forward and grow the business that way.
Fantastic. You almost taken the my last question away, but I suspect there's more. My question was going to be, now that you've got that agility and you've got those global ambitions, what next? Where do you see yourselves going? Will you expand out of this market, or will you stay in this specific market? What's the future for Oxbury Bank?
Yes. So we've had a great run of the sort of 3 years of being live. We broke even in December 22, and we had a full year of profitability last year. And so, UK Bank, we feel like our assumptions about why that was needed have been justified. We still have a great strong pipeline of business, and we're committed to growing that business in the UK. And our ambitions here are to become the agricultural bank for the UK. That is very much the plan. But as I said, meantime, we have great technology. We've got a great team of developers. We know that the demand for better services, both technology led and financial, exist in these other jurisdictions, and we're going to take those opportunities. And our right to win is our sector. This is about the agricultural sector. This is about supporting farmers across the world, putting healthy, nutritious food on people's plates, and addressing the challenges that come from the climate catastrophe and nature degradation that need to be addressed. And actually, again, farmers are right at the forefront of that fight, and they need to be supported in being able to do that, not just here in the UK, but actually globally.
Well, I don't want to add anything to that. What a wonderful statement, mission statement, and execution. Congratulations on what you're doing. I hope you'll keep us up to date with your progress as you carry on through the life of Oxbury. But for now, Tim Coates, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Richard.